It's a good thing that you are.
Joel? That was cringe as fuck.
Hey everyone, this is Carbonite, bringing you another standard match. Today we have another for fun game. We have myself testing out Ezel on the left, and on the right we have it going up against Vermillion. So two decks from set 11. Since it's December, they did actually get their promos, and we kind of wanted to see how well the decks could do with the new improvements. And of course, these are both a little bit of a non-traditional build. You did see my Order Jet deck profile from my teammate. That actually got me thinking about how I could theoretically build both of these decks, because they do both center around orders already. So I was wondering how well the order package in these respective decks would actually benefit them. And to my surprise, I think they actually work pretty decently, as we're going to be seeing here. Anyways, we do see Vermillion go for a little bit of rush, calling out that Rising Phoenix, which is just a really good card in general. Like, it's just like a free body, as we'll see it putting in a lot of work in this game. But we do see myself hitting into a defensive over trigger there, causing me to stay with 0 damage, which is actually not what you want in this deck. You want to be at 1 damage so you can actually search out your order on your grade 2 turn. But of course, your grade 2 turn doesn't really last that long, because you will just be discarding. And riding straight into the grade 3. So then we do actually activate the Reign Supreme King of Beasts, which is actually a pretty good order card. It lets you check the top 7, call something, and give it 5k. Now it does kind of suck that it's a grade 3, and you kind of search at grade 2, so it does kind of have that same Maelstrom problem. But Ezel is different, because you straight up just ride all the way to grade 3 on your first grade 2 turn, so you can activate it right away. And we're going to see the benefits of it. I do call out the new promo there, which is just an amazing card. But here is another card that I really, really like in the deck, the Tayfault. If you have played an order this turn, you can Soul Blast 1 and check the top, as long as it's not placed by unit card's ability. If you play an order, Soul Blast 1, check top 5, call 1, or add a grade 3 or a grade 3 or lower order to your hand in this situation. So this card it came out on set 11, and everyone I think just slept on it. I don't think I've seen any Ezel decks playing it, but it is an insanely good card for the deck. If you call it off of the order, you can play its skill, and it just allows you to rush so much. The one issue I have with it is that it does have a skill to get plus 10k, but only when it attacks a grade 3 or greater unit. Anyways, see the promo coming in here being really amazing. When it attacks, you choose one of the effects. The main one you're going to go for is you give your Vanguard the skill that all your front row rear guards get plus 5k, which allows them to hit much better numbers, as we see this other one just hitting for a 23 already. He does actually have to go to the bottom of the deck if you use that skill, which we will be seeing here. And I guess if his second skill ever comes up, we'll talk about it then. But anyways, going back to Vermillion, barely riding up to grade 2, which is, you know, not really in a great position, but at the same time, Ezel wants the opponent to be at grade 3 as well, because until your opponent gets a grade 3, Ezel really does not do anything. The only benefit it really has is that you can Persona Ride while your opponent's on grade 2, and outside of that, it's not really the greatest, but it is definitely a lot of fun to play. And I recommend, if you do have the money, I know Ezel is actually a little expensive, then Drain's a little expensive, and of course the promos right now are probably kind of pricey, but if you can afford it, I would recommend playing Ezel. It is a very fun deck. Anyways, we see the Rising Phoenix using a skill, proccing, giving the Vanguard an extra 5k, and then calling down a Thunderstorm Dragoon, which is going to allow you to Soul Charge and get another 5k, meaning that even though I am at grade 3, both these attacks will actually be able to hit. So I am definitely going to be needing 1 damage, so I'm just going to be guarding that, and then this one I'm going to be guarding as well. Alright, so going back to my turn, I am going to be using the skill of Ezel. Since I have 3 or less units, I can check the top 3 cards of the deck, and then of course call one thing. The rest go to the bottom. But in this instance, I am going to be calling out the grade 1, what's his name, Kadugan, which is going to finally let me get to my order, which is the Blessed Hymn, I think. No, wait, that's a grade 3 order. This is like something ballad. Anyways, so that does activate at the start of the ride phase, so you still can Persona Ride after it, which I am going to be doing here, calling down a copy of the promo there. So I'm looking to have very strong attacks here. Thankfully, I did actually get to do... Oh, it's uplifting him. Anyways, you Soul Blast 1, you give 2 of your units 5k, which is actually insane to think about, because Dindrain is a restanding back row rear guard, meaning that if you play this, you have a permanent 13k booster for basically anything that you call. So it just synergizes with the deck pretty well. Although I will say in most instances, you're not playing it. Like half the time I search it to just discard it, and then if I get another grade 1, I'll add it back to my hand. But if you actually play it, it can come up in the right situation, because I mean, we're going to swing here. The grade 1, since I did play an order this turn, it does get an extra 5k, so that's a 13k boost to the 10k, giving the front rows another 5k on top of the Persona Ride. Is going to make for pretty strong attacks. So even though I can't multi-attack with the Ezel, I am still managing to get pretty strong numbers here. But we do swing the Ezel for 23, going to be hitting into a heal trigger, obviously not going to proc, and then drive checking another promo, which is going to be very good for our next turn, as we swing this other column, which is now at 48 thanks to the trigger. Without it, it would have been 38, and that's going to be calling down the over trigger to guard there. So now Vermillion is finally going to get to grade 3.
封印の檻を突き破り降臨せよ。雷の化身。ライド・ザ・ヴァンガード。ドラゴニック・カイザー・バーミリオン。
And it can finally start to do things. We see me kind of forgetting to use the skill that didn't drain. I decided to use it because, you know, that rear guard would have been attacked into anyway. The skill of Thunderstorm Dragoon, when it's written over, it's kind of exactly like Algos' skill from Maelstrom, where you check top 7 and add a order. You add the order or a Narukami, but it's a little bit better because Algos forces you to call, and it can only call Tear Dragons and Aquaforce, while Thunderstorm can actually just add it to your hand, which is pretty good. I would say always adding is better than calling, because it just, I don't know, it just lets you toolbox with it, I guess. Playing the Eternal Thunderbolt from the drop zone, giving the opponent 2 skills. Whenever that Vermillion is able to hit anything, it'll be bound, and as long as I have 0 rear guards, it is also going to give the front row rear guards another 5k. Kind of interesting that both Ezel and Vermillion have skills that give front row rear guards instead of front row units 5k, but you know, it is what it is, it's whatever. Calling out the respective grade 2 order card, since we did play an order, we can Soul Blast 1, check top 5, basically just exactly what the Keter one does, and call 1 unit. So another card that I think just synergizes so well with what Vermillion is trying to do, because you literally, if you have 1 order, you have an order for 2 turns, because you can just bind it from the drop zone. Although we have kind of turned it into discard fodder, because you know, you don't actually need to have it in your hand, and of course having orders in hand is not always the greatest. But we do see the skill of drawing Kaiser Vermillion here. Unfortunately, we don't have any other Narukami, so we're only going to be giving the Vanguard an extra 5k. We do see the Vermillion promo there, which is actually pretty cool, and we're going to see it put in some work here, as it is swinging for a clean 23, because the Rising Phoenix gave it another 5k. I'm going to be swinging at the Vanguard for 20. I already said that, but still a pretty decent number. You know, that does call for a 15k guard, which I am going to be committing here. And then at the end of the battle, it lets you bind it and draw a card, and then we'll see this. The binding is pretty important, because since the card gets bound, you can actually use the skill of Rising Phoenix, Soul Blasting 1, and calling it out for a multi-attack. Now this Rising Phoenix, my opponent did say that it was at 13. That is actually incorrect, because Eternal Thunderbolt is not really that great of a card. In order to give your rear guards, you have to have your opponent has to have no rear guards, which I currently still had until the Vanguard swung. But now that I have no rear guards, we are of course going to be getting that 5k to the front row rear guards. And then at the end of the battle, since I have 4 less damage, we're going to counterblast 1, discard 1, and deal me another damage. But I'm going to end up getting double defensives here. So sitting at a nice 33. But this other attack is still swinging for 43, meaning that I do actually have to guard it using that, what is it, Burn Nala, in order to bind it and draw a card. So funny, we have 3 cards in bind and 2 different bind zones. Who would have thought? It's like playing Yu-Gi-Oh! What do you know? Anyways, that grade 2 does also get another 10k when it attacks a grade 3 unit, but its condition is that it needs to have, it gets 5k for every empty column in its column, or in your opponent's column of the same you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, that makes it just a really strong attacker, meaning that Vermillion can actually do a few things. But of course, that Bernala is there mostly just because you need a lot of draw power in the deck, because you tend to commit a lot of things from board, and you don't make a whole bunch from hand to board, and you don't make a whole ton of advantage, so you do kind of need it. The one skill issue with playing Ezel, I will say, is that you do really need to pay attention to what you use your soul on, because unfortunately right now in the deck there isn't a lot of ways to get extra soul, and there's a lot of skills that want to use soul, at least in my build. So we have the grade 2 Tef, whatever her face is. Technically Drain can use 2 soul, but I never use that skill. Ezel himself also will use soul if you choose to use the skill. And then of course we have Uplifting Hem, which is a pretty decent card in some situations that you would also want to use soul. So you really have to be very conservative with how you use your soul. We see myself using the one soul that I have left on the Uplifting Hem, because I'm feeling pretty confident that if I can amass a whole bunch of power, I will be able to close things out here. As you can see, I have the Drain, I have the promo, that gives me a total of 5 attacks this turn, because I have ways to clear my board during the battle phase. So this probably going to be swing with this column first, just going to be swing unboosted. I didn't get a chance to Persona Ride, so this is only going to be 15. I think that I probably should have called that first and given it the 5k from the Uplifting Hem, because that would have meant that would have been a 20, so that would have called for a little bit more guard. But anyways, using the skill Drain, clearing out my board, swinging with the Ezel, counterblasting one at long last in order to check the top 7 cards. No, I think it's just 5, right? No, I forget. I know that the order is 7, but checking the top 7, calling 2, I call Cadwalla, and another copy of the promo, which is going to make my last swing that much more powerful. Well, it also affects his because it's on swing, and it gives the front row rares another 5k. So my opponent is going to guard a 2 to pass here, because Ezel does get another 10k. And I flip over a draw trigger on my first check, and I take my calculations, and I think my opponent's not even going to be able to guard these other swings, so I'm just going to bet everything on the Vanguard and do the second check, and I get a critical trigger, meaning that I'm able to break through this, and I'm going to be dealing my opponent 2 damage, and that is going to be the end of the game. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Pretty fun one. I hope you enjoyed the little callbacks to Vanguard 0 that I had in this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to do those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe.